Alejandra, welcome, welcome.
Hey. Hi, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing great. Happy
Good.
and thrilled over here.
I'm super excited to have you today. So I wanted to open up with this story that I came across when I was researching language. So in the 1500s, there was a Roman emperor by the name of Charles V, and he talked about speaking different languages based on context. And he said that we should speak German when we are in battle and when we're commanding our troops because it's strong, it's powerful, and it's direct. He said that we should speak French from one man to another because it is exemplary of diplomacy. And then he talked about speaking Italian to women because it had a melodic feel to it. But he also said that we should reserve Spanish when we speak to God, and I thought that was a beautiful story that I wanted to open with. And so I wanted to know your thoughts on what is the importance of learning language in your opinion?
So inspiring. I love this quote. Never heard it. I'm going to make sure to share that with my students and with everybody out there in the community. And for sure, languages, right? What a great topic. We all mm, we all try to express whether it's our native language, whether we are expats. I'm not sure if like many here people in your audience is living abroad or having the intention to, but for sure we're all trying to express ourselves. And when it comes to languages, we and I'm sure you felt this, we sometimes hit this barrier where we're like, gosh, I'm I'm way smarter in my own language, or I can express myself better. But whenever you go and whenever you try to practice and learn more, whether it's German, Spanish, whether it's English, French, you get to see other parts of the world, how people's doing things, how things are, how people are reacting to stuff, how people are doing and behaving. So it's nice to have those perspectives as well and put it into your own self development journey, and it all makes sense. You get to explore in a different level in different ways. So I've always said this. It's a really nice development route to follow if you want to go that path.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think I've tried to learn a handful of different languages over the course of my life. I have not been too successful with them at this point, but nevertheless, I've learned that language, if you only speak one, you tend to be very limited in your ability to express yourself, especially when it comes to like emotion and thought. I think a lot of times some languages are great when you want to be direct and when you want to say something maybe a little bit more analytical. And then you have the romance languages that are much more poetic and allow you to express yourself in a much more in a much deeper level than say something like English. So I think learning new languages really kind of opens you up in ways that you probably wouldn't have otherwise even thought about had you not even given yourself the opportunity to go there. And then you touched on another thing at the end in terms of self-development. I can't tell you how, like, you have to be very vulnerable when you start learning a
Yes.
new language, right? Because you're gonna fail almost at every turn. You're never going to be perfect when you first start. So you really have to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be exposed for not being maybe intelligent or maybe not. People might look at you and perceive that maybe you're not as competent as you want to, as you want to showcase to others. And so that really builds a tremendous amount of resilience. And I think that that really plays into self development. But I guess how do you overcome that? Like, what would you say to somebody who's struggling in that way? They really want to learn, they don't feel comfortable putting themselves out there. How do you get over that hump?
You overcome that doing it, just showing up for yourself mostly, continuing, shutting that inner voice that says, "Oh no, you're not good enough. You're not expressing yourself. Your pronunciation sucks." you're doing things you shouldn't be saying. And sometimes it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Whenever I have the opportunity to laugh about things I've said or things trying to come with some idea or something that I've said that I shouldn't have said, that it sounded terrible in a language before, in another language. And, it sounded good in mine, but honestly, I shouldn't have said that. Nothing really comes to mind right now, but one thing is, for example, in Spanish, we might have words. I'm a native Spanish speaker. So I have words that in English you don't have, or in French, or whatever language. One that comes to mind is estrenar, that word that means that you're wearing something for the very first time. But that it's a verb, but it means that feeling you have when you're wearing something for the first time. And we get it as, Spanish native speakers told me if you get this feeling. Whenever I talk to you, you might be like, I don't even have a word for that
Yeah.
in English. It's so the way I'm gonna view life or certain things in a language is gonna be one. And then if I pick up other words, other vocabulary, other ways of seeing life in different language, that's what another language is gonna bring to the table. And that's something worth pursuing because then you get to open up yourself, your mind. And by doing that, you get new experiences. You get new ways to see life, to accomplish things. In the meantime, we're gonna laugh about ourselves because yeah, it's vulnerability in
Yeah.
steroids, honestly. It is.
I think the idea of just using humor is so like fundamental to language because if you can't laugh at yourself, you're never gonna be comfortable enough to like try a new phrase or get involved in a new conversation. Look, as an American, we're all known for like just being incompetent to other languages. Like, unfortunately, that's just the truth. And so when I was living in France, I the only thing I could do was laugh at myself. I remember using this is gonna be a curse word, so I apologize to the listeners, but and correct me if I'm wrong, you know French better than I do, but there's a difference between, connard and canard, right?
Yeah.
And I remember ordering duck, one night at a restaurant, and I used the improper way of saying that word, and everybody laughed at me. And had I just taken that and been like ashamed of myself, that would have been super discouraging. And and then I wouldn't have wanted to go out ever again. And so I think humor is like, it is at the cornerstone of like being okay with being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. So I really thought that was, yes, I agree with you 100%. And you and I have a good sense of humor, so we can laugh at each other about these things.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can do. And also remember that feeling. I'm sure if you wouldn't have had that feeling of, shoot, what am I doing? Why did I say this? I can, sometimes I can even tell the difference if I said it or not, if it sounded like that or not. But I'm sure the native speaker
Huh.
actually got that. But remember that feeling you had, you wouldn't even remember. Right
Yeah.
now, you're able to tell this story, and now you know the difference because you recognize the feeling, the emotion. Life is that, it's emotion. And if we can just, like not being attached to that and just take what we're learning, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like I think when you try to gamify it and just have a good time with it too, that really kind of opens up the door of accepting that you're gonna fail. You know what I mean? I remember when I was living in France, I would before I'd go out, it could be any given scenario. I remember I was getting a French press. This was the first time that I had gone in public and I was gonna go into like a store and I wanted to get a French press because I needed coffee. I'm addicted to coffee, right? And I was in my room and I was practicing all of the different like conversations I might have to encounter. And I remember going into the store and I'm like, okay, I'm going to say this. And then they're going to say this. And then I'm going to respond with this. And they're going to, and it never, ever worked out that way. And it never, like, I always was like, I'd say something and they would say something that I was not ready for. And I would just look at them dumbfounded. And then I'd be like, désolé, mais je suis américain, je suis incompétent.
You did not say that. And I'm sure everything in your mind was good. It was fine. You were confident. It sounded perfectly. The moment you open your mouth, and it happens to everybody. It's happening to me, and it just sounds different.
Yeah,
it's it's funny. It's
and it
funny. Not that funny at the time. I mean,
yeah.
when that is happening, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think just having fun with it and trying to like just like put a like a game, you know, try to associate with gamification and like like pat yourself on the back when you get wins. I think that's another like really big way to like get over the
Mhm.
vulnerability thing. Is I do remember there were instances where I would have these small conversations with people, and I can't tell you how good it felt just for them to understand the phrase I used. You know what I mean? Like maybe we didn't have like an in depth conversation where we're talking politics or something, profound, but just the fact that like they understood my question and then I understood their answer is such a win. And yeah, so I really appreciated that.
For
Now,
sure.
here's my question. I have another question for you. Do you think that when you learn a new language that it in ways will change your like just your overall personality and like just the fundamentals of how you look at life? And I could give you an anecdotal story to kind of prepare you, but like I remember when I was coming back from France, I started to adopt that silly little that the French do.
Gosh, I know, I know. It took me years to get rid of that. Not that I don't like it, but it was my personality in Spanish. Yeah, yeah.
Totally, totally.
For
So
sure, for sure.
yeah,
100%, that's the answer. I think everybody knows that it would be amazing if anybody could experience this and embark this, because sometimes it is against your will. You think I wanted to do that, like, but that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. But I just felt like watching that every day for 2 years. Of course, it made me somehow do that and say that. Not only that, expressions that I wanted to say that sounded perfectly in French, but it made no sense in my language or even speak in English. You do have a different personality. It doesn't matter how many languages you speak. And people here like speak more than 3 or 4 or 5 languages. I'm sure there's one personality in every language you speak. And you take a little bit of everything, and then you can blame yourself if you want to. But at the end, when you're speaking that language, when you are doing something, you do get like an alter ego. Let's do it like that. And I actually love. There's this somebody in the community that teaches Spanish with her method, and it's called the alter ego. Because what she proposed, which is amazing, is okay, if this is not you, it doesn't feel naturally yet, because you haven't picked up like the vocabulary or the language you're learning, but you're doing this, and just come up with an alter ego. Have a different name, like a name in Spanish, a name in English, a name in French, and then just be that person while you're doing that. I should have done that before this interview. Like, I should have come with my American name, my American alter ego. I think that would have been easier.
no, no, no. We want you to be Ale from Mexico. No, it's so funny because like this is so being back in the U.S. and like not to like totally throw Americans under the bus, but we just are so ignorant to other languages. I go to this coffee shop and I like help this little old lady with her French. She works at the coffee shop. She's a real sweetheart. And like French is a hard one because it's a lot of it is like pronunciation, right? Like they use the back of their throats, whereas like English speakers we use the front of our mouths when we speak. It's a little bit different way of like just overall using your anatomy. And I teach her going back to your alter ego example. I'm like, just act like you're French. Just kind of give like act like you're like je suis and like have like almost like this again alter ego that you want to like personify to other people. And oddly enough, that works. And there's something about that where you take on like this new identity and you pretend like you are this native speaker of a different language and you almost adopt it's just the mannerisms alone make you almost sound more like knowledgeable in that language. It's a very
Sure.
funny anecdotal. Yeah,
That's why I love that method. And the fake it until you make it, and you're gonna feel comfortable.
totally.
You're gonna end up feeling comfortable if you do that enough. Discipline, because there's also that aspect we can just not forget. Discipline, consistency, showing up every day, creating a routine. It's just not gonna come off naturally. If you move abroad, you live in that country, you're just people think they're gonna absorb it just by living in the country or being around people. You're going to manifest it, if you want to put it that way, by doing that, by speaking, saying stuff you didn't want to say, doing it by practicing.
No, I okay, so this leads me into my next question is, I took the approach of moving to France. Um, I know we were there to get our MBA, but I really wanted to just to learn the language. But what I found is when I got there, everyone spoke English, and God bless the Parisians, but they are so impatient with people trying to learn their language, right? Like they don't care if you don't know their language. They're not going to sit there and teach it to you. Um, how do you think what's the best way to learn a new language? I mean, like immersing yourself is one thing, but not everybody gets the luxury of doing that. Not everybody gets to put themselves in that scenario. What's been your experience? What do you think? Like what when you say discipline, that's a really good word to use here. How do you inundate yourself with a new language to the point where you actually become fluent?
Very good question. If you cannot do it by yourself, and let's be honest, it's a new thing. It's like going to the gym, it's building muscle. We have not built that muscle yet. We need help. We need somebody that knows that better, that might have a method, that might have done that before in the past and can show you the way. So that's why having a mentor, also known as teacher, also known as guide, coach, whatever you want to put it, is the best thing you can do. That is what I did myself. We were in France. We were studying the MBA, having this great community in France, but we were speaking English all the time, Spanish as well. So of course I did not learn English the first year as well. We did learn business. That's nice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the second year when I got serious about French. I hired a coach. I was doing these classes in person and also online Zoom. That's how I actually discovered this amazing word and this amazing world of, online teaching. And I actually moved from Paris to Lille, which is, in the north part of France. And nobody spoke English to me there. I felt, like so alone for 6 months, not having my friends, my native speaker friends around me, but I got the gift of learning a new language. So it was kind of the circumstance at the time, but it helped a lot. And also the guidance. So I could have that is having a teacher. Okay. Because it doesn't matter if I moved to the north of France, if I wouldn't have had somebody, like he's guiding me, he's telling me where to go, how to study, route, like everything. I think that was the main difference.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think that having a mentor or a coach is a way of holding yourself accountable because if they teach you something and they give you, say, like an assignment or homework, and you don't go out and do it, and then you have to go see them again, there's like this element of shame that you just don't want to face. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to let that person down. And then, moreover, like when you do go out and you practice and you learn the language and you're able to come back and like showcase, like, you taught me this last week, and now this is what I've done, this is how I've applied it. And they see that in you, and then they reinforce that. Like, of course, that's a great feeling. So I think mentorship is exceptional. I also would say that when you get a coach, and granted it has to be somebody who's good at teaching, but they can explain things in ways that maybe you didn't think about and ways to like think about how the language works outside of what your native language is because there is a little bit of crossover between English and French, but like there are certain words that I would use in English that there is a direct translation in French but doesn't work in the same context, if that makes sense. And so when you have a good teacher that can showcase that to you, I think that that makes a huge difference too. So there's the accountability thing, there's a reinforcement aspect of it, and then there's somebody who can kind of like bridge the gap between like what your understanding is and what a native speaker of that language would interpret.
And
So
it's a beautiful process. It is.
it's a beautiful process for sure.
Same.
Yeah. What do you think people struggle with the most when it comes to language? Do you think it's that they don't want to be vulnerable? Do you think it's a lack of discipline? Do you think it's like what do you think is the most difficult part of learning a language?
Together, everything that you've mentioned, but there's one that I see all the time, and it's that we often, and also talking about grown-ups, we don't give ourselves enough permission to be beginners at something that is new to us. Because sometimes you might have people that are successful in their businesses, they have a great job title, or they've just done something, and it makes them feel like there's a purpose in them. But when it comes to learning new things, being vulnerable, we just said that we just don't give enough permission to ourselves to be as beginner.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, when we're children, the process of learning is so familiar, right? Where you have to learn something new over and over and over again. But as we get older, and we start to find ourselves being set in our way, like, okay, I'm an accomplished salesman, I'm an accomplished entrepreneur, I'm an accomplished, fill in the blank. It's really challenging to want to go back and put yourself in a position where you're like, I'm not good at this anymore because you built up all of this momentum and this reinforcement and this confidence in yourself that you are that guy or that gal that is smart and competent and intelligent. And now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're not that person and it's intimidating and it's scary, but that's like the essence of growth. And I
Sure,
think
and there's where you want to be. And
yeah,
that's the kind of group you want to be in when you are not yet that. You're being surrounded and inspired by these people, you're just gonna end up becoming that, whether it's languages, whether it's a new sport, whether it's business, whether it's creating, a new store or a podcast, whatever.
yeah,
So having a
yeah,
mentor and having a group and accountability partner, that's the best thing you can do for anything in your life.
I absolutely agree. Um, in terms of purpose, I know that you just kind of went and we touched on purpose a little bit. Um, where do you think how do you think that learning a new language, even if it's anecdotal, right? Like if I went out and I learned, say, I don't know, let's just pick a random language, Portuguese. Okay, Portuguese is great, but unless I'm going to Brazil and unless I'm going to Portugal, like there's not much of a reason why I'd ever use that language. Now, if I learned Spanish, it'd be different, right? Because I live in the United States, we have a lot of Spanish speakers here. Chinese, obviously, for business purposes, would be a beneficial language to learn. But like, how do you, where do you think that that lies in terms of like giving someone purpose and somebody like just like a sense of like, I'm doing
Mhm.
this because there's an end goal to it, or there's something that makes me more fulfilled.
Yeah, some people do it because they want to feel fulfillment. Some others do it because they need to learn Portuguese if they want to go ahead with another job and whatever, and if they move to Brazil or whatever. But let's just follow your example. You're not moving, you're not having a job, or you're not using it. You just want to do it because it makes you feel fulfillment, and it makes you feel fulfilled. You want to do it. Um, when around you, you've got vocabulary that you've learned since you heard your parents, your family, community. You know how to express your feelings at this point, and maybe it's limited, maybe you're really good, and you've done the work, and you've done self development, and right now you're able to express feelings to your partner, a boss, community, whatever. Just imagine putting more vocabulary to that in another language. You're going to have way more words to express something in a different way that you've expressed in your language. Just feel how that opens up your brain and says, even if you're not going to use it, you get to see how other people also express themselves, how other people, embrace other situations, how they behave. That's going to open up your mind, regardless if you use it or not right now with your family and friends or in your relationship. That is, by definition, self development.
Yeah. I agree. One of the greatest, and again, like I know I'm kind of being a little bit self-deprecating here, but like I didn't master the language of French, but one of the greatest joys I have being back in the US is I get to teach people certain aspects of the French language. I always tell people like I'm not conversational, but I have a very good familiarity with the language. And so it's fun to be able to teach people like pronunciation or certain words or like the rule of like liaison, when you drop a vowel and you put a comma in there and you combine
Mhm.
the two words or whatever. I love that. That gives me so much joy. And I know that that's like, it doesn't necessarily like add like this crazy amount of value, but to me, it gives me I wouldn't say like a profound level of purpose, but I feel like I'm, like, yeah, this is, I'm adding to somebody, I'm helping teaching somebody something. And so I think that there's something to that. Also, I would argue that like when you learn a new language, regardless of how far you go in it, you are giving yourself the ability to like you just accomplished a goal, and that gives you confidence, and that gives you the motivation to want to go accomplish a new goal, regardless if it's a language, or maybe you want to go get into want to go exercise, or maybe you want to run a marathon, or maybe you want to chase a new job or whatever. But when you're able to put yourself in a situation where you're vulnerable and you push through that vulnerability, and you teach yourself resiliency, and to your point earlier, discipline and consistency, now you know how to take that and apply it to other areas of your life.
For sure.
So I think language is a great way to like bring all of those into one.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And then when life happens, because it's gonna happen, and if there are bad situations, I don't want to call them bad situations, but like challenging situations. I mean, you know the way. You know the way to learn new things, and you can learn your way out as well. So that's why it's all about the process. It's never the goal. And of course, if you learn a language right now and then you don't practice it anymore, of course you're gonna forget how to do things, how to say stuff, or like use phrases you used to you say like so easily. You know, so it's just like the gym, the building, like the muscles we're building. We need to keep working out, otherwise we're gonna lose the progress. But you know the way. You can always take it again. You can always go back.
Yeah, no, you've mentioned like using you keep using the term um like training your mind, or like it's almost like a muscle. Learning a new language, I haven't done like any super in-depth research on like the the science behind it, but there's definitely something to where it like improves your cognitive ability, your ability to be agile with your thoughts, being able to think on your toes, being able to switch your mind from one way of thinking to another way of thinking. And this is a great way for people to kind of keep their mind sharp. And with the emergence of artificial intelligence, and I want to get into that in a little bit. I think we're starting to
Mhm.
lose our ability to think for ourselves. And when you learn a new language, you don't get the ability to rely on something thinking for you. You have to go through the motions of like listening to somebody, trying to understand and comprehend what they're saying, and then in real time having something that you can say back to them. Right. That was one of the most challenging things for me was when I would hear somebody speak, first of all, it was hard to understand French because the language is set up to be fluid and to be beautiful, and that's the whole purpose of the liaison and all these things, and they have all these silly little rules that you have to like remember. But it wasn't just understanding what they were saying; it was in real time coming up with a response. Like, how am I going to respond to this? And that was always a challenging thing. So I think when we're to your point earlier, this is a form of like mental exercise that's only going to set you up for success in other areas of your life where you know, and it helps you master your own language. You know what I
It
mean?
does.
You get a much better in-depth understanding of your own language, which I think is really neat. And then I think that we're kind of on the path of getting here, but like just a connection with other people, right? That's
Yes.
one of the hardest things is when I before we started this podcast, I was telling you about that Mexican lady at my gym, absolute sweetheart. Um, it's really fun to like communicate with her and connect with her using Spanish because you can see like the excitement that she's like, you're learning, like you care about my culture and that excites me, and that brings us a little bit closer as friends, which I think is just,
Yes.
I mean, that's just fun for me as an individual.
Yeah, so it's not only about self-development, but it's also about connection to other people, to other cultures. Just being able to see how everybody else thinks, and they're opening up like this new world. And if we're, intelligent enough to see like there are different ways of doing things, then I'll develop what I think it's good for me, but I'm also interested in knowing what you do. It's a good way to connect for
Yeah.
sure.
It's so funny. When we were in Paris, I can't tell you how many times I got the look of disgust when I would talk to a Parisian and they knew that they'd have to speak English to me. They were just so like upset that I was this English speaker, and you know how they are in Paris, where they kind of want you to speak their language. But also there was this duality of where I would try to speak their language. And when I did, they were just they didn't have any patience for me at all. So I didn't know where to go with that conversation. Like, I'm going to try and speak to you in French. And then they would just get annoyed and bothered and speak to me in English. And then I would just
We
respond
also
back in
need
French.
to find, like our tribe, our group, or I don't want to say our safe space, because I don't want people to misunderstand that you only need to do it in a safe space. It might get wild out there. It's fine. That's the whole purpose, being able to do it. But you need to find yourself in a group when you're able to do that. There are scenarios for that. Paris is kind of like, like a higher scenario to start. So I agree. But if you go to other places, you might find yourself like, going
Yeah. So I
for
want to
sure.
ask you this. When you do when you're teaching these people, are you teaching in groups?
I am teaching in groups, but what I'm doing right now is business coaching. So I'm teaching teachers to create their own business, to teach whatever language they're doing right now. It could be their native language or other language they've learned. So I'm teaching them to create programs that create a transformation for their students, not only, teaching classes, because
Yeah.
everybody can do that. Mhm.
So I'm assuming that you're teaching them like certain level or certain aspects of like the fundamentals to learn a new language. Is that
I'm
an
teaching
accurate
them
assessment?
business wise how to get new
I see.
students, how to get to students, how to get an automated system, how to leverage their teachings also by creating, like all the tech wise things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Great. So let me ask you this. What do you think is one of the biggest motivators for people to want to learn a new language? Because if they're out there and they're getting new clients, like what's drawing people in? Like what are people excited about learning? I don't know why I picked French. That was the most useless language to learn. I should have learned Spanish.
It's so beautiful as
It
well.
is
You
beautiful.
cannot say
It is. Yeah.
that.
No, I thought it would help me woo the women. So that was literally my only motivation.
I love it. I'm going to tell you three main things that
Okay.
drive people to say, yes, I'm going to enroll into this language course right now. One of them is career purposes. It means like you want to move abroad, you want to do the MBA, and you need to pass the certification exam. It means like you want to have like better, like a better payment, better, like you want to earn more or whatever. Another thing would be for family purposes or relationships. So it means you have, like your partner speaks this language, you're going to visit family, or you want to understand their culture, like, or family. You don't want to feel out of the picture. And family as well, it happens. I used to have students from the States that would speak perfect English, but they come from a Hispanic background and they don't know their language. So they want to learn
Interesting.
Spanish. And that also is in a family category. And then the third one would be if you want to move abroad, if you're an expat, you ended up in this amazing country and you feel like you don't really belong because, I mean, everybody speaks here English, but I don't know. I don't know, the native language.
Right.
Or, it's kind of the self-development. I don't wanna leave the country without learning the language. Or I'm in my own country, but I feel attracted to this culture. I don't know why, but I do wanna learn Japanese. It's funny, I have no friends that are from Japan whatsoever, but I wanna learn the language, given whatever example. But, it could be any example, any language, and that also follows into the 3rd category. So these are the main 3 motivation if you wanna put them in a category each.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I guess that all makes sense, right? Like career, if you want to, move abroad and make more money and that sort of thing. And then obviously the family thing. The family thing is a good one because uh, you would think that in a relationship your partner would teach you their language, but that's not it. No, it does not happen. No, it does not happen at all. In fact, when I was living in Paris and I was dating this girl, she spoke 3 languages. She spoke English, Arabic, and French.
How many did
And
you learn?
I none, because the thing is like you make the connection speaking to one another, not them teaching you a new language. And so we only spoke English, and that was how we made our connection. So it was like, why would she teach me Arabic or French? Like we would like that does not help the relationship at all. But it's kind of funny. But no, it makes sense because you want to go and impress your in-laws or your whoever it is that you're going to visit. So that makes sense. Um,
Or
what
you don't wanna
languages?
feel out of the conversation, you also wanna be part of it.
You don't, yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a good point. You definitely want to be a part of it. You don't want to be the odd man out that's sitting, over
You
here.
also want your partner to feel like you cared about their language, their culture.
Yes, definitely,
So
definitely.
everybody can have their own motivations, but these are
Yeah.
the 3 main ones, I would say.
And what are the main languages people want to learn? I'm assuming English is one of them.
It is, and we understand this is a globalized world, and whether you like it or not, this is the language we all speak. When I think about my journey in learning the language, it's been helpful. I get to study in this beautiful language. I get to meet amazing people such as you and the friends we had. And I also get to travel and be able to be understood and listen to podcasts, interesting podcasts that maybe I don't have in my own language. So for sure, English is one of the main languages. I will say Spanish is also a big one, like having this many countries and speakers. And French is also is
Interesting.
the third one. Italian and and yeah, those
What
are
about
the
what
the
about what
main
about
three.
Chinese? What about like Mandarin?
And it also I want to say like this is also I'm in Spain right now. I'm in Barcelona. I've been living here for 2 years, as you know. And before that, the main country I was working with was the States, helping students. But of course, if you go and ask somebody in Asia, they're going to tell you like a lot of people want to learn Chinese, and that is for sure. In my community, in my spaces, I've only have a handful of teachers that teach Chinese, and that is because I'm towards this, side of the world. But of
Okay.
course, they're gonna be plenty
Yeah. No, I just asked that because I know it's one of the main languages that's spoken, and it makes sense that in the Western Hemisphere, people probably aren't super interested in learning Chinese, and it's a hard language. I mean, you have to learn an entirely new alphabet,
for
and different
sure.
sounds and everything. So that's got to be challenging in of itself. You mentioned earlier English, and it's kind of a globalized language. You mentioned the benefits of it, right? Being able to communicate with other people. I know we talked about connecting with others, and life is much easier when we all speak the same language. And da da da. Do you think that there is detriment in English being the globalized language? Do you think that it's going to be? Do you think it's a bad thing in any way, or any negative side effects to that?
In my opinion, it is what it is. Honestly, I don't have an answer for you. It's just like when people ask me, "Do you think AI is a bad thing? Is that gonna like take our jobs? Is that like gonna make us stupid?" I don't really have an answer. I will say I'm not worried because whether you're talking about a language or a new technology, everything comes to your ability to learn it, to learn new skills, to learn new ways to project what you do and how you're here to help people. Human abilities, they're not going to go away. If something, they're actually going to be more important than ever. So when it comes to a language, it's nice that in your case, you're a native speaker and you didn't have to go through the process of learning it. But it is what it is. It's nice. You get to do your own thing with that. Now, if you're going to talk about other languages, you're going to have to do your homework about that. And that's where, it's going to be useful for you and you're going to have your own process. So, in my opinion, it is what it is. And the world is what it is.
Yeah. I that's a very stoic approach. I appreciate that. I'm very much into just letting things happen and play out the way they're going to play out because you can't force anything. I would say the only arguments that I've kind of come across that would say that this becoming like a globalized language is that people start to lose their culture, right? Like when we were talking about earlier, when you take on a new language, you almost take on a new identity, and so what does that mean for culture on a global scale? If we're all speaking the same language, is that going to inherently dismantle culture at in at a certain level? Right? People aren't obviously going to resist that as much as possible. I think there's a time and place for English being the language, particularly, when we're talking about like say politics or business, when we all need to be on the same page. We all need to make sure that like, we understand one another and there's that level to it. But I do fear that if English is the only language that everybody speaks, like how am I ever going to learn the Portuguese way of living or the Chinese way of living or just the way that they think, right? And kind of I don't know, I'm kind of torn on it because I've always been a believer of learning new languages. I love the idea of doing it. Again, it's like a challenge, it's a discipline. And I genuinely felt guilty when I lived in France and everybody spoke my language. Like there was something about that that I kind of felt dirty because I didn't want them to speak to me in English. I wanted to speak in French. You know what I mean? And so even though it was convenient and even though it was easy, and don't get me wrong, there were times where I was really grateful that they were speaking my language, felt bad. I felt bad genuinely as like a native English speaker. I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to like I don't I'm okay with struggling. I'm okay with being vulnerable.
Once again, it is what it is. If you take a
Yeah,
look with neutral look about this, it had to be that way. You were learning other skills, you were learning other stuff. Right now is what do you want to do next? If you ever go again with another intention, and if you move abroad again with the intention of learning the language, I'm sure you're going to pick better. You're going to have better choices right now and put yourselves in groups when you're able to do that. That you
totally.
could learn. Hmm.
Yeah. No, and if I were to do it all over again, I would absolutely start with a teacher. It was something that I spent, the last 2 or 3 months in France working with a tutor, and
Hmm.
why I waited till the very end, I don't know, probably because I thought I could just be immersed and it would come naturally, but that was not at
We
all
didn't
the
have the
case.
culture though. We didn't know that. I
No,
did the same thing.
yeah,
Mhm.
totally, and I'm just speaking by experience, like, I would first of all, I'd get somebody to hold me accountable and that, can help bridge the gap between my misunderstandings and how to properly use the language, because I was also learning from, like, your native language is Spanish, it's not French, like, like, I can't ask you questions about French and get this very, like, detailed, complex answer. You just had the black and white answer, like, "No, this is how you say it." It was hard to give context behind, a phrase or something like that. And not to discredit you by any means, you're a far better French speaker than I am. Um, but I would start with a tutor first and foremost, and I would also do everything I could to stay away from anything English speaking in terms of the digital diet that I took in. So like TV, music, all of those things, and just like inundate yourself constantly with it. Um, the relationship thing is tricky. I remember being out there and they used to always say, "Well, just get yourself a French girlfriend." Again, like that just doesn't. Unfortunately, that sounds great, but unless they don't speak your language and you have to learn their language, it just doesn't seem like a very practical method.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And then other challenging will
I
arise,
know.
like other challenging things will arise. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
I would do that again, and then I also would probably not have gone to Paris. I probably would have gone to a smaller town in France. Like you mentioned earlier, when you moved up to Lille, it was a completely different scenario because they just
Shout
wouldn't
out to
speak you.
you. You were one of the few people that went to visit.
Of
Appreciate that,
course.
man.
Of course. No, I had a blast. Actually, Lille is a wonderful city. It's a really, really cool city. I didn't know what to expect, but I really enjoyed that. When we were riding the bikes through, the downtown area, it was a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
sketchy, but it's seared into my memory, so I had a lot of fun doing that.
I remember that too.
Yeah, so I probably would have just gone to a different part of the country and learned because I think that it's just I think, Paris specifically is very globalized, and so everyone speaks English. Even when they say they don't speak English, they're lying. I know you speak English. Um,
Uh,
um, so that's probably what I would recommend to anybody listening to this is, like, get somebody who's gonna hold you accountable because it's gonna be hard to be disciplined and hold yourself accountable, and then if you're gonna immerse yourself, if you have the opportunity to immerse yourself, do it in a place that doesn't have so many different cultures where everyone's likely to speak English. Like, you just really, really put yourself in an uncomfortable position, and you're gonna be uncomfortable, and you're gonna be vulnerable. It's not gonna be fun, but it is an incredibly rewarding when you make those small wins, and
sure.
so
Hmm.
so earlier you talked about artificial intelligence. I want to end on this because this is a really interesting thing, and the reason why I bring this up is because this podcast I want it I want it to be international, and I want to get different perspectives from people across the globe. I'm really interested in that. I love it. My favorite part of the MBA program was that I was the only American, and I got different perspectives from other people. Truly, thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that language is going to be a barrier at some point. And so in my mind, I'm like praying that there is like the technology in the language space really develops in a significant way where I can have conversations with people who don't speak English. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's realistic? Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? I know you're going to take the stoic approach, but like, do you have any opinions on AI and language?
I do have an opinion on that. My opinion, the neutral opinion, is when it comes to, oh, is that going to take our jobs? Or is that going to be bad? Or when people freak out about new technology. And but when it comes about, bridging the gap, I'm all in. I'm 100% in. Just let's say we go to Japan tomorrow. We have no idea. We do you speak Japanese? Now that I'm aware of.
Konnichiwa. I know konnichiwa, and that's about it.
Konnichiwa, gozaimasu. Yeah, that is my Japanese so far. And let's see if we got this application that helps us. Do you think we're not going to use it? We're just going to be glad there is. We're going to
Yeah.
use it. We're going to benefit from it. And my opinion is that that is amazing. If we meet somebody from Japan, if I go outside here in Barcelona and meet somebody from Japan, they don't speak the language. I don't speak Japanese. I'm gonna use it. It's gonna help me connect somehow. I don't know until I don't see, to what point that would help us, but I'm sure more than enough to at least know what we're talking about. But when people ask me, is AI going to be able to teach a lesson, and take my job? Like
Mhm.
remove me from the picture. Teachers use a lot this expression. Am I going to be removed from the picture? And that's when I say I I don't want to hear you say that again because you're going to remove yourself if you want to. But just try to think like the human abilities that you have right now. How are they going to be able to serve better? How are
Right.
you going to put that to your students? How are you going to be able to give more value, provide this value, and also, help them understand why this is valuable. I mean, you're good with this app, amazing, but there's nothing like being able to have conversations such as this. There's nothing that can,
Yeah. I actually never even thought about that. I think you bring up a really interesting point. I don't know where AI is gonna go in terms of, like, teaching people languages. I was more thinking from, like, a translation perspective, but in terms of, like, teaching people languages, there's definitely something to the human connection that you just I don't know how or if it will replace that. That, I worked in sales my whole life, you know me, I'm a salesman, and this conversation got brought up a lot, like, what's gonna happen to the salespeople at the company? Are they gonna be replaced by artificial intelligence? Are people going to be, selling to CEOs and CIOs in the future? And as it stands right now, I don't think that that's at all likely. And the reason being is because of that human connection, right? If we're talking about sales from like a a business direct to a consumer, that I can maybe, like advertisements and that sort of thing, it's a very, very slow like sales process and you're not really interacting with somebody. You just see a commodity, a service, a product, and then you purchase it. Okay, I see. AI is probably and it's already making its mark in that regard. But the sales that I was in were typically from 6 months to like 2 years long. Like, they were very, very long sales processes, uh,
Yes.
in the tech space. Part of the process is you building that relationship with somebody. I'd take them out to dinner. I'd, go golfing with them. I'd take them to racetracks. I'd take them to sporting events. Artificial intelligence is not gonna it's just not gonna it's not there. And not only that, but from, like, the buying perspective, I can't imagine that someone's like, I'm talking to AI right now. I trust what it says and let me, like there's kind of like a trust level on the buyer's perspective. And I would assume it's very similar to your coaching program or the people that you're working with is I don't want to learn a language from a bot. I want to like have a conversation with somebody. Going back to our what we were saying earlier, laughing at ourselves. Could you imagine having a conversation and finding yourself laughing at an AI bot, like, that doesn't compete with me. You know what I mean? Like, there's just
You want to
something
share this with a real person. You want to help yourself with the
Yes!
app, but you want to share this with, I want to share this with Quinton. I want to laugh about myself and whatever you've done. Why not share
Yes.
you?
Of
Hmm.
course, of course. So, I don't think that there's, I personally would never choose to work with artificial intelligence to learn a new language because I think that that just is so bleh. Like, I enjoyed stumbling. As silly as that sounded, it almost made you,
Okay.
like, connect deeper with that person because 'cause they'd laugh or giggle at you, and you're like, "Ooh, I just messed up." But then they would be like, "It's okay. This is how you would say this," or da 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 da, and then there's this, like we're social creatures. That's just an aspect of being social with somebody, and
That's true.
when you're learning a language or when you're speaking a language, I mean, that's just, like that's the cornerstone of social engagement. So I can't imagine that AI would ever be replacing, your job
You
specifically.
can take advantage of it. Please do so. Also, with teaching, it's going to be easier for you to create content. It's going to be easier for you to create like classes and create a structure, metas to onboard people. Amazing. But yeah, the human touch is not going to go away as far as I understand.
I I absolutely concur with that. Are you learning any new languages, Ale?
Well, being here in Spain, um, I, I want to say that I've been practicing my Spanish as well. That's it. Working with teachers, what I've been learning, what I've been practicing is French, because as we said earlier, it's not like you stop building the muscle.
Yeah.
That was a few months ago. I stopped, I will also say that. And what I've been learning a lot is marketing, digital marketing. I have my own mentors, like for my own business. So right now I'm 100% learning in business and digital business. And also, whenever I have the opportunity to travel, which is not bad, living here, in Spain is amazing for traveling. Whenever I try to go to some new places, I get again this feeling of let's like I have to, I'm lucky enough to be working with, like teachers. So I just contact them and then we have a quick call and we practice and yeah, that doesn't go away. But I'm not in any process right now of, like when we used to be in France or learning English with another language.
I was just thinking this when you were talking. Here's a question for you, and maybe you don't. I know I didn't prepare you for this one, but I
Like,
I still listen to French hip hop. I love French hip hop, like it's like my thing. But outside of that, I don't practice at all. What do you think people could do that would help like continue their learning process in a language when they leave? Because you're in Spain, you're not in France anymore. Like, what are you doing to practice your French?
oh, of course, podcasts. I listen to podcasts, and please, somebody tell me your best podcast. I can, but please follow and search the one you are genuinely, attracted to, the topics that you actually enjoy listening to, and that's gonna help you. Podcasts are great. YouTube, I call the YouTube University because everything is literally there. And I don't, whenever I go to France, I don't let them speak English to me. Of course, I
Good.
don't let them. I don't let them do that. I told you last month I was in the South. And yeah, I don't care if you don't understand me, I don't understand you. We'll figure this out. And we eventually do. So that's also another thing I do.
You are a brave and courageous soul. I cannot tell you how many times I just would submit to speaking English. I was intimidated. I'd be trying my
I
hardest
mean,
to
I
speak.
don't blame you. In Paris, I used to do that all the time as well.
God, the Parisians, they're so funny because they're like these skinny little dweebs, but they have like this most intimidating. They are just intimidating. They intimidate the crap out of me.
We
So
should give Paris a second opportunity. We should go again. You'll see it's not that hard. We won't speak English.
yeah,
We only speak of
I
French.
I will always protest that I love Paris to death. As you can see, I wear the Eiffel Tower on my hat. I'm a huge fan of the city. It's beautiful, but the people there, they traumatize me. So I love the city. The people are questionable. Uh, awesome. Um,
Um,
Ale, do you have anything else that you wanna touch on in terms of language? Anything that you wanna wrap up with? Otherwise, um, how can people find you?
yes, I wanna if somebody if you could learn something, I mean, you part of the audience, part of, this amazing project. You're watching and there's something that you should take away from this podcast, it would be only the fact that if you want to learn something new, whether it's a language, a sport, business, anything in life, please, number one, give yourself permission to be a beginner. There's nothing wrong with that. And number two, get yourself a coach, a mentor, somebody that helps you stay, the accountability partner. Please do that. Stay disciplined and also motivated because, by itself, I wish I had that, like that will. But of course, weeks passes by and then you start losing motivation. We're human. That's it. It's not that we're bad or there's something wrong with us. We're just human. So
So,
those two things, please take that away from.
all right, I have a question about motivation because this is a really big one. I'm sorry I didn't bring this up earlier. How can people stay motivated to learn a new language? Because, like, okay,
You're not gonna stay motivated. That's the answer. You won't stay. You want me to be like clear to you? You won't stay. It's gonna fade. Just take that
yeah.
as it is.
How do you stay
Now,
motivated?
think when that happens, and I know that's gonna happen. Like eventually, when anything with anything I'm learning, I've got myself the accountability partner. And if I don't have an accountability partner, meaning I don't have a coach right now with me, or I'm in a difficult situation and moving countries, or even whatever thing you're doing in life, just take a step back, try to remember yourself why you started this in the first place, and just get really rooted in that why, because your why is going to help you pass and navigate that plateau, that really bad time, in order to get back on track. And when you get back on track, you're able to see clear to get the coach, to get the mentor, or to get the routine, or, to find new people, or to, you then out of the sudden you meet people that are actually learning the same thing you are. Oh, let's talk about this. And then you start hanging out with people like this. What happens when you surround yourself with people that are doing the things you want to do, getting, achieving those goals, is you're going to end up achieving them.
Yeah. So in other words, be intentional. Find your why
Be
and be
intentional.
intentional. Yeah, I love it.
You said it perfectly.
Awesome. Alejandra, if somebody wants to learn how to obtain new clients and teach their said language, how can they find you?
Sure, they can find me at ale dot profe dot coaching, and I'm sure you can drop the if somebody didn't catch, because then it's very Hispanic. Well, not the coaching, but you can put it there, and that's the easiest way. Go to Instagram at ale dot profe dot coaching.
Awesome. I will be sure to put all the links in all of the different places that I post this. Ale, you are a dear friend of mine. I'm so honored that you agreed to come onto this podcast. Truly,
Honor to be
I've
here.
always been a fan. Thank you so much. You and many of the other individuals at the MBA program have been a tremendous inspiration, and I've always admired the fact that you speak multiple languages and you encourage people to speak multiple languages. I think that there's something that's just absolutely profoundly beautiful about trying to push yourself in that direction, from a discipline perspective as well as a human connection perspective. So thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me here on your podcast. It's been a pleasure to me. And you're a dear friend of mine as well. So congrats
Appreciate
on
it.
this, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you, my friend.
Of course, of course. We'll run it back in the future.
For sure.
Cool.
You can count on me.
All right. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Ale.